A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. So we are reading Fazail-e-Amaal. This is the stories of the Sahabah Raziyallahu Ta'ala Anhu, and we are reading the chapter number 3, the abstinence of the Sahabah Raziyallahu Ta'ala Anhu. The abstinence of the Sahaba Raziyallahu Ta'ala Anhu, there are many ahadith discussing how Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam himself chose to lead a life of abstinence. So many narrations of this nature are to be found in the books of ahadith that it is really difficult to select just a few examples. Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said, abstinence is the gift of a mu'min. So the first story is the Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam refuses the offer to have the mountains transformed into gold for him. Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said, my Rabb, yani my God, Allah Subhanahu Wa Ta'ala, offered to turn the mountains of Makkah into gold for me. But my response was, O Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala, I prefer to eat one day and go hungry the next, so that I may cry before you and remember you when I am hungry, and be grateful to you and glorify you when my hunger is appeased. This was the response of our Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, whom we profess to follow and whose ummah we are proud to belong to. Is it then not necessary that we follow him in a practice also? The second story is Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam's life of abstinence, and the caution he sounded to Hazrat Umar Raziyallahu Ta'ala Anhu in this regard. On one occasion, Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam took an oath to stay apart from his wives for a month as a reprimand to them, since the rumor spread that Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam had divorced his wives. Hazrat Umar Raziyallahu Ta'ala Anhu came running to the masjid to verify the news. There he found the Sahabah Raziyallahu Ta'ala Anhu sitting separately. They were all in tears because of Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam's displeasure and suffering. Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam's wives were all weeping in their apartments. Hazrat Umar Raziyallahu Ta'ala Anhu went to his daughter Hazrat Hafsa Raziyallahu Ta'ala Anhu, who was also a wife of Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. Finding her also weeping in her room, he said, why are you weeping now? Have I not warned you before to refrain from any act that is likely to cause Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam's displeasure? He then returned to the masjid and found some of the Sahaba Raziyallahu Ta'ala Anhu weeping near the pulpit. He sat there for some time, but soon got up and proceeded towards the room where Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam was staying. There he found the slave Hazrat Rabah Raziyallahu Ta'ala Anhu sitting on the steps. Hazrat Umar Raziyallahu Ta'ala Anhu asked him to inquire if Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam would permit him in. Hazrat Rabah Raziyallahu Ta'ala Anhu requested permission from Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, but received no reply. Hazrat Umar Raziyallahu Ta'ala Anhu therefore returned to the masjid and again sat near the pulpit. After a little while, he again got up and requested Hazrat Rabah Raziyallahu Ta'ala Anha to seek permission on his behalf. This time again, Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam gave no reply, and Hazrat Umar Raziyallahu Ta'ala Anha returned to the masjid. When this happened a third time, Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam formally permitted him in. Finally permitted him in. As Hazrat Umar Raziyallahu Ta'ala Anhu entered the room, he saw Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam laying on a woven mat that had no covering. As a result, the pattern of the mat was imprinted on his handsome body. There was also a leather bag filled with the bark of the date palm, which Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam used as a pillow. Hazrat Umar radiallahu ta'ala anhu says, I greeted Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam with salam and inquired whether he had divorced his wives. Relieved when he replied that he did not, I made bold to remark a bit amusingly, O Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, we the Quraysh have always had the upper hand over our women, but it is the women who have the upper hand over the Ansar of Medina. Our women have now been influenced by the women here. I then said a few more similar things which made him smile. I noticed that all that lay in his room were 3 pieces of tanned leather and a handful of barley laying in a corner. Apart from this, I could find nothing else. I therefore began to weep. Why are you weeping? Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam asked. I replied, O Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, why should I not weep when I can see the pattern of the mat imprinted on your body, and that all you possess is only what I see in this room. O Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, pray that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala may grant the ample provisions which the Persians and the Romans possess, despite the fact that they have no religion and do not even worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Their emperors live in a gardens with streams running in their midst, whereas the chosen Nabi and accepted slave of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala lives in such dire poverty. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was resting against his pillow, but when he heard me talk like this, he sat up and said, O Umar, are you still in doubt about this matter? Ease and comfort in the Akhirah are much better than ease and comfort in this world. The unbelievers are enjoying their share of the good things in this very world, whereas we have all such things in store for us in the next. O Nabi of Allah Ta'ala, seek Allah Ta'ala's forgiveness for me, for I was really in the wrong. This was the guide of this deen and the world. He was the chosen servant of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, yet he had nothing to cover his mat, causing the imprints to mark his body. In reality, rebukes Hazrat Umar radiallahu ta'ala anhu when he asks Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam to pray for some relief and comfort. Somebody once inquired of Hazrat Aisha radiallahu ta'ala anha about Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam's bedding in her house. She replied, it consisted of a skin filled with the bark of date palm. When the same question was put to Hazrat Hafsa radiallahu ta'ala anhu, she said it was a piece of canvas which I double folded under him when I once laid it four-folded to make it more comfortable. He asked me the next morning, what did you spread around me last night? I replied, it was the same canvas which I had four-folded instead of the customary double fold. He said, keep it as it was before. The additional softness stands in a way of getting up for tahajjud. Now let us look at the furniture in our bedrooms. Despite living in so much comfort, we never hesitate to complain of hard times instead of being grateful and more obedient to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for his bounties. We will add one more story. Number 3, the hunger suffered by Hazrat Abu Huraira radiallahu ta'ala anhu. Once, after wiping his nose with part of a fine cloth, Hazrat Abu Huraira radiallahu ta'ala anhu remarked to himself, "Look at Abu Huraira. He cleans his nose with fine cloth today, whereas there was a time he used to lie down between the pulpit and Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam's house, and people would put their feet on his neck, thinking that he was suffering from epilepsy. Little did they know that all that plagued him even were the spasms of hunger." Note, because Hazrat Abu Huraira radiallahu ta'ala anha had to remain hungry for days at a time, he was often so overpowered with hunger that he could fall unconscious. Mistaking this as a tax or epilepsy, people placed their feet on his neck, which was how they treated the condition during those times. However, he saw better days in the later years when Muslim conquest followed in succession. He was very pious and loved very much to perform nafal salat. He also had a bag full of date stones, which he used for his dhikr. When the bag was emptied, his maid filled it again with date stones. He divided the night into 3 parts: his wife, his servant, and he. Himself took turns to be engaged in ibadah. The author, Hazrat Maulana Muhammad Zakaria Rahmatullah Alayh, says, "I have heard from my father that this was also the practice of my grandfather. My father used to be engaged in his studies of the deen until approximately 1 in the morning, after which his father woke up and engrossed himself in Tahajjud Salah until 3/4 of an hour before dawn. He then awakened his daughter-in-law to perform Tahajjud Salah as he went to sleep for a little while before Fajr, perfectly in conformance with the Sunnah. Allahumma arzuqni itaba'ahum." Sadaqallahu al-Azim. And we will cut it short right here. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu.